Now walking down the aisle, Tad Davis. I'm trying out for the Rangers next year for announcing.
They're hiring. Um, I actually wrote out something like 3 different times what I was going to say. Each time I'd write something, I'd get mad and rip it up. So I started praying about it. So what can I say about Kevin that's not going to be said? So I started writing again a 4th time, ripped that up. So I just decided I'm going to wing it. I met Kevin at OSU OKC. Been about 10 years I know him. I was sitting there eating a hamburger in the student lounge. He sits beside me. I had no idea who he was. He's like, "Is that good?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's good." Just thought it was kind of weird. Didn't think anything about it. Didn't say anything the rest of the day. So a couple of days later, he comes up to me and, "I'm going to get a hamburger today." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "What?" Thinking, "Thanks for letting me know." And so I'm doing my homework, which was the first time the whole semester I had done homework, about 4 weeks into the semester. And he asked me, he said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing math homework." He says, "Do you like it?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you passing that class?" I said, "Probably not." So I asked him, I said, "How's your hamburger?" He said, "Pretty good." So I introduced myself to him. He introduced himself, and since then we went on a long ride together. Just a couple highlights. Got to be involved in government together at the school, which was pretty awesome. Kind of had control of the college pretty much, where we got almost pushed some things through that would have worked if there wasn't certain people in government at the time who knew what we were talking about. So that didn't get passed. One of the funny things that I always remember is at one time I was living on Penn with myself, him, and Clint. This is when the time I had full head of dark hair. And we all had dark hair coming in, and we just woke up one day and we're like, "We're just all going to shave our heads." And I'm like, "Right." And so Clint goes, shaves his head. I go, and I'm like, "I'm just going to do it. I can't let Clint beat me." So I shaved my head, not thinking, and then Kevin goes over to his folks' house and comes back, and I'm sitting on the couch, and he's like, "Dude, you ain't going to believe this." I'm like, "What?" And he takes off his Notre Dame hat, and he's bald. And I'm just looking at him, I'm like, "Seriously?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then after he grew out, shaved his head bald, he's the only one who still has no hair. And all the rest of us grew our hair back. And that's when he proceeded to grow out his long beard. We went from living there to Bethany, where we had some adventures in Bethany. One of the things that I can never say is he never made me not laugh. He's always doing something to make me laugh. We were working on his car, and he said, let's try to bend this. And he's like, "You think you can get under there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I get under his car, got pliers, trying to pull back a piece of Pride metal away from his tire. He's leaning on the car the whole time. I had no idea, and I'm like, "Dude, somebody's leaning on this car." He's like, "No, I'm not." And just kept leaning on it. I'm like, "Okay," and I'm like, "I ain't getting anywhere." So he said, "Get out, and I'll fix it." So he fixed it, and I knew nothing for like the longest time. Until like 2 weeks later, he said, "That whole time you were working on that car, I was leaning on it." I was like, "Thanks." So he moved out. He decided he needed to do some new things. So I'm not gonna lie, I was angry at him at first, but then after talking to some people I knew, I figured Kevin had an idea of what he needed to do, and that was when he decided to go to the South Side, pursue his dreams on the South Side. But I never lost touch with him. I mean, I always had the heart, willing to smile. I'm willing to laugh. Numerous times he'd come pick me up if I needed a ride. I've lost my license a couple of times. Kevin was more than willing to give me a ride. He was the servant, but he wasn't just a servant. He was also your friend, and I'm proud to say he's my brother. Kevin, I miss you. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hi, I'm Stacy Smith. What? I wanted a hug. I met Kevin, I guess, 2003, 2004. I had just graduated high school, and pretty much all my friends moved away, and I had a falling out with my best friend, and him and Zach they were my only friends. They were my brothers. My brother had moved away too, and me and Kevin fought like brothers and sister too. He was a little, um, you know, he was about as stubborn as I was. But my favorite story was a couple of years ago, I had a pool party. And pretty sure Kevin was the first one that stripped. And what was there, 4 or 5 guys, they had to join in. So I'm going to say we might not have, me and Kim. But the next morning, I get up and have to clean. There are his swim trunks on top of the angel statue. So I hope Kevin, when he gets up there, they don't give him slack for throwing his swim trunks on the angel. I love you, Kevin.
Hi. Sorry. I was on the Starbucks crew too. I met Kevin about 8 years ago. And that whole group. And again, you guys are like brothers to me. Lord knows what I would have turned out like without it. When I found out he was in the hospital, Stacy luckily called me that day. Like, did you know Kevin was in the hospital? I'm like, what? What's happening? And in my mind, I was like, oh, it's nothing. He's a good guy. He'll be okay. And then the next thing I know, Stacy's like, oh yeah, I had lunch with him. He's fine. And I remember being mad at my boyfriend for something totally random. And I missed that meeting with him the weekend before he died. And before that, I started to keep a distance from the boys because there was some drama and I wanted to kind of wait for that to pass over before so I hadn't seen him for like a month before that. I have to say, I needed to see Kevin. The day after my car got totaled, I felt so alone. I remember my Norman friends were like, oh, come bowling with us. And I went. I remember almost resenting them for having fun. Because I was like, I have no idea what's happening. And then I come here and I see how much love there is. I know I'm not alone. And that Kevin will always be there for me like he was when he was here. Of course, then again, I bet he was laughing when my car got totaled. Yeah. I want him to know he will always be in our hearts. And I will never put some minuscule problem in front of a friend ever again. The fact that I could not have said goodbye whenever he was able to. I love you, Kevin.
Hi. I knew Kevin all my life, and I have to say, he was one of the greatest guys I ever knew. And he made everybody so happy, including me. I remember going to Starbucks with all the guys growing up while my mom was working. He was always so nice to me. I know I probably irritated some of his friends, but Kevin always understood. He didn't even care if I kicked him, because when I was 7, I used to be ornery and kick people and think it was funny. And he would just laugh and say, "Is that all you got?" And he was one of the best guys I ever knew. And while everybody's sad that he's gone, I'm happy, because I know he's better off. And if he had the choice, he would not come back, because, I mean, would you pick here over heaven? I wouldn't. I know everybody here loves him today, and I know everybody's missing him, and I'll miss him too, because I saw him 2 weeks before he died, and I was so surprised he was in the hospital. I was like, wow, really? And whenever I found out he died, I was surprised. I was like, wow, this really proves that someone can just die at any moment. One moment someone's fine, the other, God decides to take you. I'm glad he took him quick and not suffering. So that's all I want to say is I love you, Kevin.
Okay.
My name is Jeff. I've known Ian since high school when we were both 15. And my first memories of Kevin were when I went to Ian's house. We played Dungeons and Dragons. It was the first edition game when we were reading about the description of a thief, where they have their abilities of, climb walls and pickpockets and hear noise. When we got to that part, we both heard Kevin crying about something. He either heard himself got in trouble or something or other, and Ian was like, I hear a noise. And of course, Kevin was only 3 or 4 at the time, and he would often come into the room and wanting to join us in our games, and Ian had to say to him, "Now, Kevin, you're too young to be facing the forces of evil. There's the door. See you in about 10 years." And that was not the only time we had these little interruptions. That was the Kevin that I was most familiar with. I didn't have the opportunity, or perhaps I should say I didn't take the opportunity to get to know Kevin when he became an adult. Hearing everybody's testimony about him has really opened my eyes to what kind of a person he had become, and what a wonderful person he had become, and how many lives he had impacted just in this room. No telling who else. Obviously many. Obviously he had turned into a very sensitive, very kind-hearted, very generous, very giving person. I only got one opportunity to see him as an adult several years ago. I think it was in the parking lot of a Walmart. He might have been by himself, or he might have been with his parents at the time. And he wasn't sporting the full beard that he had most recently, but he did have this long wisp of a beard, and it was braided. And I remember going up to him, and I'm like, "Are you getting ready to go on an expedition with Leif Erikson?" And he came up with some kind of a witty retort, maybe something about all the artifacts he'd found. Obviously, generosity runs in his family. Ian's been a great blessing to me in the time I've known him. We had rough times in high school, and he was with me through all that. I'm very blessed to have him as a roommate, because I certainly can't live alone, not with my circumstances. With this economy and me not having any talent to speak of. Anyway, obviously that kind of blessing runs in the family. Ian and Kevin are truly a chip off the old block. His parents have set a wonderful example of relationships. And just to sum it up, I believe that a lot of people much older than Kevin could have learned from him and would have been blessed to be around him. And I know that Kevin is looking down and smiling at us. So he set a very strong example of joy, and he took God's hope, the hope of Jesus, and the joy of an afterlife, and he's shining that upon us now. We will miss him, but we all have something wonderful to look forward to. We have that example.
Back in 2003, August of 2003, I attended OSU OKC, and I got connected with the BCM, and three people just stick out in my mind: Roger Godwin, Tad Davis, and Kevin Broderick. Not gonna lie, at 18 years old, I didn't really have this beard going on, and Kevin did. So that kind of attracted me to the guy. But he always had a heart for Christ. He had the biggest heart in the world. He'd take a shirt off his back and give it to you. It might be 3 times your size, but you could use it for a blanket. Throughout the years, I've done some great things with him, not so great. But one of the coolest things that I remember about Kevin is our friend here, Steven, and his brother Michael's, their mother passed away a few years back, and they took it pretty rough. But as a group of friends, we decided one Friday night, instead of partying, we were going to throw a family dinner for them and in honor of their mom who had just passed. And that was one of Kevin's biggest ideas. He was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I was like, "It's a good idea." Years went by, and like Tad said, I was able to room with him. Tad's not lying. For some odd reason, all three of us decided to shave our head completely bald the same day. We got some crazy looks from people of other ethnicities. But don't worry, we all love everybody. One of the biggest things, Kevin and I had a competition going on. And it started about this time every year. And it was who could come up with the most creative Halloween costume. I had some good ones, including Beetlejuice and Papa Smurf. He had some other ones that I can't mention in church. But nonetheless, they were very creative. And to look across the room, like people said, his realm had no end. I look at Micah, who I have known for more years than I thought. Randomly, we're sitting at a restaurant, and she walks up, and she's like, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, "All right, girl, you're crazy." About 10 minutes go by, we're like, "Oh, that's how we know each other." Then we have Erin back here, who comes into my work a lot to get her Sunday morning fix, Saturday morning fix, Friday morning fix, whatever it is. And at the time, Kevin's like, "Hey, my coworker at Starbucks, Aaron, keeps coming to Jimmy John's, and he won't bring me any food." I'm like, "My bad, dude. It's really good." He goes like, "I know." And so, come to find out, Aaron and I have kind of made a friendship over the last year, not knowing that Kevin was the inner web that we had there. He always referred to her as his African. Hey, he loved you. He loved you a lot. He loved everybody a lot. Zach. Wow. Chad. Chin. Heath. Steve. Mike. Gambit. You guys are like a brotherhood, and you still are, man. Keep his spirit alive. I know you will, and I know I will. I had the luxury of living with him for a year, and love you guys, and just keep praying for the family, as just God gives that overwhelming peace to everybody at this situation right now.
I met Kevin about 14, 16, 17 years ago, when we were in the youth group, and he was really enthusiastic with his relationship with God. We used to have these homeschool days at our church, and he'd come pick me up. There's a winding road on the way all the way to Heritage, from Bethany, Oklahoma. He'd always ask me, Gabe, do you know where you're going to go when you die? And I'm like, heaven, of course. And he goes, are you sure? And I'm like, sure. He's slowly swerving into the left lane, So I'm like, Kevin, watch the road. Kevin, watch the road. He's like, I'm watching the road. Don't worry about me. I'm worried about you and your relationship. He starts swerving into oncoming traffic. Are you ready to meet your maker? I got a full life to live. So do you, Kevin. Come on, man. He goes, okay. Well, we do this once a week, and he'd keep doing it. One time, he almost actually hit an oncoming car. And so after he did it, he's like, I got to pull over. Kevin, are you ready to meet your maker? We on those days, it was just, me and my brother and him, just us guys, boys out of my family. There's 3 of us then, and we used to rewrite Green Day music and put it into a Christian perspective and play it. We never got to do it in front of the youth group. I don't think it would be really acceptable. Some of the stuff we threw out there was really far. I miss those. But he was great, I'm surprised that van that he drove and made it that long. As many as torturous winding roads as he took that thing, and I wish we still had that van around, that would have been awesome. But he was really an amazing person. I will miss him greatly. He was a really good friend. I never really could think of anything. I just sat here. I had bad times with a few people in the church. I never once had a bad time with Kevin. Except for almost hitting an oncoming car. So I can't consider him a friend. I consider him a brother, unbloodly, but he is my brother, and just like my other brother that died, I will miss him.
Hey guys, I'm Steven. Most of you know me, this crowd over here, but like Gabe said, Kevin was a brother. I've known each other, I guess, a little over 10 years, and I kind of became a hermit crab the last couple of years, so I kind of fell on the grid. I had some personal things going on, but the time that me and Kevin spent together, the years that we've spent together, he really helped me in a really low, dark place, and he was there, and God put him there, and I know that with all my heart. And as we were talking earlier, Kevin did taking his shirt off and stuff, and I was always doing it with him. And we didn't skinny dip, we chunky dunked is what we called it. So that we had some good times. But every time he did it, I was right behind him. So this did happen, unexpectedly, and I try not to play the why game or ask God why, but he did so much good on this earth in such short time, and he has touched everybody's hearts, and I know that. So, and you guys, my heart goes out to you guys, my condolences, and he will be missed, but will not be forgotten. So that's all I've got to say.